The latest from the Telegraph, Oxford ends women-only fellowship after university rules that it breaches equality law. And this is not the only story in this realm. I've got a couple others that I've pulled up because apparently this is an ongoing thing with the UK and with Oxford and these colleges where all of their social justice initiatives, maybe not all, but many of them are being found to actually be discriminatory. It's funny how that works, right? You advocate for social justice. We've got, this is apparently a program from the 1930s to benefit women. And then as time goes on, as I've stated time and time again, the more we try to protect every group, the more we actually strip those protections away. Case in point, in the 1930s, hey, women should have a program so we can encourage women to be active in work fields and things like that, in fields of work. It's early. I'm doing early videos. Bear with me. And what ends up happening is as time passes, decades pass, all of a sudden now people are saying we need more inclusivity. Now we've come full circle because that's kind of how things work. We've come to the point where we said, no, having a women-only program is discriminatory and must be stopped. Well, let's read the story. And then I got a couple other ones where it's actually really funny. Oxford and Cambridge actually have to open like new schools for diversity, and you know where it's going to go. We'll get there. So Oxford has ended its women-only fellowship after the university's administrator said it breached equality law. That's crazy, right? That's crazy. The Joanna Randall McIver Jr. Research Fellowship, established in the 1930s for women studying fine arts, music, or literature, was deemed to be discriminatory on the grounds of gender by Oxford's council. This is the first time that the university has opened up a historically female-only fellowship to male applicants, and the move has prompted a backlash from previous recipients. I'm gonna have to agree with previous recipients. One of the big issues in terms of equality, in my opinion, is like, if you have a gym that's only for women, okay, well, it would like there's got to be equality to a certain degree. A gym only for men, right? Which I don't know if anyone would actually care to use. But the issue is, I have no problem with a women's only program so long as there's an equivalent program that's also just for men. Preferably, for me, I think it would be better if it was co-op, but I understand that there are certain circumstances where men and women are different, and thus they're going to want to be in different situations, like different places, maybe not around each other, I don't know, different kinds of humans, different desires. And thus, when I see as a women-only fellowship, I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand. I understand. Well, you push for this kind of social justice, you get to a point where eventually they say, men must be welcomed into this women-only program in the name of gender equality. I can kind of understand that too, right? It's an interesting conundrum. But I would just say that for feminists who really wanted this to be exclusive to women, well, this is what happens as social justice progresses. There was one news story, I can't remember who wrote it, it was like Splinter or Huffington Post, something that said, it said black men are the white people of black people. I kid you not, that was an actual story, and it's like an ideology that has no end, that must convince you that it's always worse, can only do one thing. It can, like, everything will always be bad, therefore everything must always be changed, and it goes around in a circle. Now, this program that was for women, to encourage women in fine arts, is going to have to allow men. That's equality. So they say, the decision means that other research fellowships could be under threat, including those run by Cambridge's female-only college Newnham. The college says that its women-only appointments comply with the Equality Act. Does it? Professor Elizabeth Cullingford, a Randall McIver Fellow in the 1970s, who is now a chair of English at Texas University, said, I feel pretty strongly that having one or two things that are special to women aren't going to threaten any great power structure at Oxford. The history there is totally male. For years, women couldn't even be in the university and couldn't be a fellow of a college. She said that women do still have some catching up to do with men, adding, we may have parity in numbers, but do we have parity on power? I doubt that. I am the first female chair of the English department at Texas University. Has been around since the 19th century, yes, but it's also important to point out that colleges are overwhelmingly female now, most of them. Okay, so it's not parity, it's actually inequality. And now we're starting to see men get inducted into these women's programs because women are the majority. Like, you got to explain to me how the power structure works when majority of academics are women, including professors, including teachers, and then you're going to act like you're the underprivileged minority. You dominate the sector, right? So this is what we see. Let's see. So the fellowship is funded by the state of British-born archaeologist and Oxford graduate David Randall McIver, who set it up in his wife Joanna's name after her death in 1932, and stipulated that it should only be awarded to female academics. And you know, isn't it really funny that in 1932 that was okay? People were like, okay. Now today they're like, that's bigoted. Former recipients include Jennifer Mundy, the Tate's head of art historical research, and Georgina Herman Obe, an eminent archaeologist and the first woman to discover Afghanistan's lapis lazuli mines in the 1960s. The first woman to discover it? What does that mean? How you have to explain that to me. It doesn't... Did like a man discover it and then a woman showed up later after she knew where it was and they said she discovered it? No, if she discovered it, she was the first person to discover it. What is it? This is what you get, okay? This is what happens with identitarianism. The first woman to discover the mines. I don't know what that means. Right? Are you telling me that a guy found it first and then she showed up after the fact? Or was she just the person to discover it? Like, that's ridiculous. Alexandra Wilson, a professor of music and cultural history at Oxford Brookes, said that her Randall McIver Fellowship in 2004 transformed her career in academia. These posts are like gold dust, and they're highly competitive. When I was applying, it was very common to find music departments that were entirely male. Things have improved, but possibly not to full equality, she told the Daily Telegraph. I do think it's a rather regrettable consequence of a well-intended law that this opportunity for women should be removed. I think we've got one really big problem across the board with this ideology, and it's that it may very well be women choose not to do these things. Now, of course, the social constructivists, I don't know, apparently they're different, but the people who believe that everything's a social construct, we'll just put it that way, are going to say the only reason women don't want to do these things is because society tells them not to. But that's just plumb not true. It's probably true to an extent. You know, in my opinion, I think there's nuance in everything, and obviously nurture plays a huge role. I don't believe overtly in nature or nurture, but I think it's silly not to look at nation-level statistics and say, maybe different people want different things. And there's one direct difference between men and women, and it's reproductive biology. You know, guys can have kids way later in life. According to attractiveness, men who are older are considered more attractive, women who are younger. All of this is relatively obvious to most people because you can see it in nation-level statistics. Now, here's the thing. It's true. This may be heavily impacted by social constructs. I just think that when it comes to everything, when it comes to gender, when it comes to even ethnicity, there absolutely is some nature and some nurture. I just think one of the big issues is that I think a lot of things are overstated. I think you'll end up with people who say, clearly, no woman would ever want to do this and all women would be happier doing this thing. It's like, no, that's not true, right? If you compare an individual female to an individual male, you'll find they're likely identical in most capacities. But when you start comparing, 150 million females with 150 million males, you'll find that small deviation. And that's why I am an individualist and not a collectivist, because I don't think we should judge the individual based on the collective. It's not fair. And so that's what these things do, right? These programs where, okay, we've got nothing but men, women don't want to do this, so let's create a space for women so they can have access. And I think that's fair, I do. And now you see how it evolves. Now it's, no, there are too many women, now men have to get involved. And I guess the main issue is it's entirely possible that on a long enough time scale, you will just end up with top-tier men because of the, what's it called? There's a thing about greater male variability, where you're going to end up with more guys who are more passionate and more driven for simple reasons, and they'll dominate, plain and simple. Well, let's you know what? I was going to get into these other stories, but I tend to do this, I ramble, so I'll just point these things out real quick. This is from a couple days ago. Oxford and Cambridge must launch new colleges for disadvantaged young people. And how long until this is considered discriminatory? I'm not kidding, I'm being serious. They say it's high time for drastic action by the universities to set aside places for pupils from underrepresented schools. And what does underrepresented mean? What does disadvantaged mean? You know the identitarians are going to say it means non-white, right? When hopefully it means class, because race is not a defining factor. Race doesn't determine whether or not you're wealthy. Although I do think, as I stated, it's not one thing or the other, it's nuanced. For the most part, if you're going to go ahead and assume that someone's disadvantaged based on the color of their skin, you're a racist! Plain and simple! And then we have, this is actually from last year. Oxford gave female students more time to take tests. It didn't work. Yes. Why would you do that? That's ridiculous. So you know what? I'm going to end by saying this. I think it's sad to see this program, which was designed to help women, actually kind of go by the wayside and now just become an open. I think it's a good thing in some circumstances to have programs for women. I think it's a good thing in some circumstances to have programs for men. But you know what? Maybe this is the right thing to do. Actually, you know what? It's actually rather confusing. It really is. Because I don't entirely disagree with women having their own programs. I don't disagree with them having, ladies' night for the most part. But you have people who, something interesting happens. As we push for more and more equality, and women demand access to men's spaces, you then have the inverse of men demanding access to women's spaces. And I don't mean like the women's locker room. I mean literally like, there's a big push saying like women must be allowed to be in these specific programs, like the Boy Scouts, for instance. And then you have men's rights activists who are suing bars for having ladies' night. And I'm like, everything's just kind of getting so crazy, and the lines between what makes us different are being blurred, and everyone's being convinced they're identical when they're not. They're just not. Anyway, I just thought the story was funny. So comment, let me know what you think. I'll have this is my new early morning video that it's kind of just a warm up for those that are not familiar. It allows me to get into the flow of things, just jump right in, start rambling, talking about some issues that I found interesting. My main channel, youtube.com/timcast. This is where I have like more straightforward, professional type videos. It's going to be up at 4 p.m. And then I'll have more videos on this channel at 6 p.m. Probably from 6 to 7, it's a full hour of videos. So I just break them up and put them in a playlist. So thanks for hanging out, and stick around. I'll have more videos later today.